And let me see if I can find the agenda somewhere. That's not what I want. Ah, there it is. So first thing is to take a look at the previous minutes. I have those somewhere here. Jane sent those out. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, they'll stand approved as sent. The next item would be purchases. I had one purchase since the last meeting, and that was a cable. It actually relates to the next thing, which is issues at the church. One of the things that we ran into, and we're not quite sure how or why this happened, but the connection that we had from the camera to my computer seemed to stop working. And we weren't sure if it wasn't the cable. So we went ahead and bought a new cable. But actually, it turned out that we couldn't, that didn't seem to be the problem. And so I haven't really identified what the problem is. So we ended up buying another cable, which was one that is a USB extension, and it allows us to connect a different, a little camera to a tripod. That is sort of Andrew's suggestion that we have some sort of another camera that gives a panorama of the board. And so we did that, but we needed a longer cable to get it out where the camera would be out in front of the board. And so the first cable I'm sending back, the second cable cost $20.32. And so I'd like to have a motion to pay for that cable.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay.
Chris, may I,
Yeah, go ahead.
how much was the other cable?
The other cable was $27.92.
May I suggest you just keep it, not as a matter of, not only as a matter of just don't bother yourself, but we should have duplicate cables of everything, I think. I mean, that's just standard practice at a minimum.
I would agree with you. It doesn't hurt to have that cable as a potential backup, and so I would entertain that motion.
Are they identical cables?
They are. They have to have a special micro HDMI end to go into the camera, and that's a very small little connection, but that's important to have to make that work with our camera. So.
But that worked at one point, is that correct?
It worked fine up until we were doing a workshop here in the office, and we had the camera, and then we could not get the connection to work. And so I went through the camera settings to try to figure out what the problem might be, if there's some setting that we had changed. I didn't discover anything there. And so I'm just not sure why that it's basically an output from the camera to a computer. I'm not sure what the problem is.
So are we still with that problem right now?
Yeah,
We are.
yeah. Yeah, we haven't identified what's not working right. But that's, I think there was one sort of minor side benefit from not having that video from the camera coming through the computer. It seemed to be less less use of the processor on the computer. You know, video can take up a lot of processing room, and so without that coming in, and the USB camera coming in seemed to be less of a burden on the processor. So I think ideally we'd like to have the camera feed, but at this point we're working on continuing to have a smaller camera feed, basically a second camera.
Yeah, just let me repeat where we seem to be headed with this issue. And that is that we seem to be headed to and this is the setup that I did do in my previous community. Roger pointed out to me at last at the annual meeting, I think it was, that he had indeed turned his cell phone into, in quotes, a dumb video camera, where he shut down the audio of the phone, but used it simply as another participant in the meeting. And it was on, and that camera was focused, I believe, on the crowd,
On the audience.
And then we had the USB camera mounted on a tripod in a static position with the board captured. And really the beauty of that setup is that you are not relying on any camera operator for either views. And, you know, over the longer term, it's certainly attractive from the standpoint of how much manpower do we need to produce hybrid Zoom meetings every time we have a board meeting. And this cuts out. Now, that's not without giving a nod to our volunteers who like to operate the camera potentially. And I understand that element, but just from a management standpoint, managing the process, it is simpler and it has fewer possibilities for technology glitches. So I am certainly in favor of looking into refining that process and confirming it and making any further adjustments. You know, I had the USB camera at my other community, again, with a big long USB extension cord, but I had it mounted on a tripod, and the tripod was raised about 20 feet in the air. And then trained down on the board, and it gave a pretty good view. So I like that direction that we're going. If there's a preference with the committee to still, you know, work on bringing that video camera back, then I'd be happy to help troubleshoot that and get that back online and use that because it does have its advantages. You can pan and you can get close-up shots of John or Steve or other board members speaking. I do not discount the value of that. That's something that is a nice to have. But sooner or later, you've got to balance both approaches, and I just wanted to mention that.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and purchase the second HDMI cord.
And
What
again,
if-
that's for,
Go
Didn't we
ahead.
do that last time?
Oh, I see, the HDMI, okay.
Yeah, the cord that I was gonna return, if we
Okay.
wanna,
I
if we
so
wanna
move.
purchase that, I won't return it.
Okay, I so move.
Okay, second,
Second.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I think we're, again, the meetings really went pretty well at the church, for the annual meeting, the reorganization meeting, and the March, monthly meeting. I thought went really sound-wise. Everybody seems happy with that. And we were able to, show all the people on, Zoom on the TV camera without any problems. We had, I think, well, I'm not sure. We had quite a few people on Zoom. I'm thinking we had about a dozen. And we, the church was, had a nice, attendance. We probably had 50 people there.
42.
No,
Okay, 42. And so it was a good turnout for the annual meeting. And then as usual, a lot of people leave after the annual meeting's over. And so then the reorganization meeting and the board meeting follow. Those
and
are
Chris,
all,
I think,
those are all online as videos. I think we ran out of battery midway through or towards the end of the monthly meeting. And so there's actually 2 videos of the monthly meeting. Just one, just a short ending. One thing that we did bring up to Steve, as far as it was mentioned at our last meeting about it's hard to read the cards in front of the board members because it's a little small. And Steve talked to Tom Couillard, and Tom tried to zoom in as each speaker was speaking and get a picture of their card so that people could see who it was that was speaking. So it's kind of a bit of a fix. Perhaps we can continue to ask them to make the cards a little bigger and give them a little better look of who the board members are. So I think we can move on. The next item is the website review. Lynn, you made a couple suggestions, and I did follow through on that. I took the estoppel piece out of where it was under the FAQs, and I also added Emerson Point to a list of local attractions. Surprisingly, are you aware of this, Lynn, that there's about 4 or 5 other preserves out to our west?
To our west.
Yeah, there's Neal Preserve, there's Perico Preserve,
yeah.
there's a preserve right next to DeSoto. Way more than I was aware of.
Yeah.
And so most of them have walking trails. A number of them, a couple of them are restricted as far as no bikes and no pets. But there's more preserves out there than I was aware of. One that I would kind of like to visit is there's one across from Coquina Beach. It's an island, or sort of an island out there that's sort of got some interesting mangroves and things like that. So we may want to add some more to those local attractions. One I was going to add, have any of you ever been to the the Pomasola Botanical Garden.
No,
Judy just went to that last week, and she actually went 2 days in a row because she loved it so much.
I like it too. It's right across from the north entrance to Robinson. And it's free. It has a great selection of fruit trees. And so if you've ever wondered what some of the fruit trees with some of the more unusual and exotic fruits look like, they have it. They usually have almost all those kinds of trees there. So it's a nice it's not an extensive park, it's not real big, but it's something I think will add to the local attraction.
Chris, have you ever been there and had an opportunity to get any of the chocolate pudding fruit?
No, I haven't.
Judy was out there last week with a friend of hers who was visiting here from New York, and there was a gentleman that was trimming some of the trees, and he was trimming this fruit tree that had these great big green balls on them, and he was just laying them on the ground, and he let them take them, and he said to them, let it ripen on your counter till it gets soft, a couple of weeks, cut it open, and the inside is like chocolate pudding. So we cut one open this week, and in fact, it's like a gel. To me, the consistency is like a gel, but it does taste like chocolate. And you can either eat it, scoop it right out and eat it with a spoon. You can mix it with drinks. He said sometimes with some of the liqueurs that you might have after dinner, mix it with that. It's a really interesting thing, and it's like the size of a good size orange or a small grapefruit.
Wow. No,
And he happened to be trimming them.
I think I missed that in looking at all those trees.
Okay.
That's neat. That's what's nice about this park, or this garden. It just has trees that you just aren't, you're not familiar with.
Roger, I'd like to add to that. We tried that Judy gave us this morning, and it's
Okay.
very much like chocolate pudding. And it even looks like chocolate pudding.
Yeah, I
We'll
knew she
have to
brought
ask
one over.
Detweilers if they'll carry some of that.
It's got an official name, and Judy wrote it down, but she's not here. Right, I'm not going to get it right now. But yeah, it was very interesting, and yeah, we did share it with Dan and Linda.
Now that's neat. Let's go back to our agenda. And classified ads is next on our agenda. And I want to be sort of diplomatic here. Jane and I received an email from Barbara Carey, and I'm not sure Jane, because of the way the email was listed, Jane wasn't even sure who Barbara was, because it didn't say Barbara Carey, it just said Barbara. And Barbara was asking why we were having classified ads for services, which looked like more of a business type ad. And so I spoke to Barbara about it and suggested that she was concerned about the newsletter ad, and that we might be usurping their ads. I spoke to her about it, and I suggested that, well, why don't you offer the newsletter ads with the addition of having them in our classified ads online? And she thought that was a good idea. And I think I sent out an email to some effect showing you what her suggestions for charges were. And Jane, you brought up the idea that Barbara suggested that they charge our owners and employees an additional fee or having it on the website when basically the owners can put anything on the website they want to without a fee. And so, when I brought that up with Barbara, she got a little, I don't know. She got a little, testy, I guess. And fired back and wanted to know, what authorization we had for our ads at all, and whether or not it shouldn't go to the board and all this sort of thing. And so, I responded and said, she can do what she wants, but we're going to continue to offer ads. And so, she then decided not to add the additional, an additional charge for putting the newsletter ads online. So I guess she abandoned that whole idea. I guess I don't know quite what to how to respond to her. I don't think we're doing anything that we shouldn't be doing, and she doesn't want to use the website for additional revenue. That's up to her. She actually sort of made the assumption that we were going to steal all of her ads, or that we were going to steal most of her ads. I don't know where that came from.
So where did this get left, Chris? We continue to do our ads as we have.
Right.
And what's the rest of it?
They're going to offer the newsletter ads just in the newsletter with no additional charges to put them on the website. And she actually thought we were going to go out and solicit ads, and we've never done that. It's available. People want to put ads up. There are actually one of the ads that is for our services. I think Kathy and I are going to take advantage of. There's a woman in our association that is offering beauty care, hair and pedicure. She's offering a pedicure, and I think she's going to charge $25. And I'm in. We're probably, and she'll come to your house or your condo. So I think we were going to do that. But I see nothing wrong with us having that kind of an ad on our website. Jane, comments?
The other ad that's up there right now is a student nurse who's offering to babysit, pet sit, house sit. I mean, she's hardly a business. And as you say, we haven't solicited it. She has found the fact that we have ads for services and has reached out to us. And it's always been that we would post these ads in order to bring more traffic to the website. I mean, making money has never been the primary focus here. We don't charge anything, and I think, yes, I wasn't happy with Barb Carey's jumping in feet first into the situation without fully understanding it.
Yeah, I would agree. And so it is what it is. She can go ahead and solicit ads for her newsletter, and we'll continue to offer classified ads.
I'm quite happy if she'd like to, put wording to the effect that if you wish, we'll post it on our website as well. And, I can take it from there once I get the details. That, I think that would be great, actually, but
yeah,
whatever.
I thought it was a good idea to do a combination thing, and but it doesn't look like it's going to happen at this point.
Chris?
Yes.
I just like to offer up that the other side of the coin, which is, and I filled in for you yesterday, and I attended the first newsletter meeting. So none of this came up in the discussion, by the way. Having said that, I actually like very much the separation of church and state, if you will, of having classified ads in our association permitted from individual association owners providing, in quotes, a service. But I see a lot of problems if we lift up the tent and begin letting in advertisers in the newsletter also occupy space in our website, where you have fully functional businesses, air quotes, businesses, having ads on our website. I guess it's a personal opinion, but I, you know, how long does their ad stay on our website? How is it maintained? Can the advertiser change out the ad if they want to? I mean, there's a whole host of potential issues that come with managing for-profit businesses versus individuals providing a service. So I like the separation. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the way it is right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we aren't taking any business ads for the website. You have to be an owner
Yeah.
or a resident to
Yeah.
submit. The next item is update the resident list. I think Andrew, you brought this up about we need to. I think it was actually slightly misleading in the minutes, Jane. Catherine did update the list, but it was last year. And so it was this time, it was about the beginning of the year last year that when Catherine updated the list. So it hasn't been updated recently. And Andrew suggested that maybe we should all sort of divide up the work and see if we can get that list updated. I sent out, and I believe it was the end of February, so it's almost a month old, the Excel spreadsheet from the office here of the current owner list. And so I can get a new list. I can get a more updated list of end of March. And but what I think we might want to do is again take probably the easiest way to do it is take A, B, C, D, and just break it up into sections and say, if you would take this part of the Excel spreadsheet of the current list in the office here of the owners, and I believe it's got, I don't know if it's got renters on it too. I'm not sure it does. And compare it to our directory. And so you can do the directory alphabetically, and you can go in and you can then match and see if everybody is the same, and if there's a difference, you know, we need to make that change in the directory.
Can I add
Sure.
just a I was always confused why the IT committee was executing a resident directory update. To me, it's not our job. Now, I understand bandwidth and volunteerism, and we do what we need to do in order to get from point A to point B. And if we end up having the IT committee provide some type of resource to help update the resident directory list. I have no problem with that, but I most certainly would want to start with John. Saying to John, our resident directory list is not up to date as it could be and should be. It's part of potentially what was not done on a regular basis by Cynthia and should have been. And would he, does he have, do we have a green light to help, or would he rather have Mary and Marianne, our new folks, be involved in that process? Because ideally, in a clean piece of work here, the front office would provide the IT committee with an updated resident directory list. We would put it on the website. End of story. So this is not an IT committee responsibility, generally speaking. Again, we have our unique situations, and if it turns out that we all divvy it up and get the list done through our resources, I'm all for pitching in, but not without at least letting John know
I have.
our path.
I have.
And so he said, "You guys do the update."
Yeah. Well,
Well, that's interesting.
I told him that we needed to update it, that it wasn't current on the website, and he's okay with us doing that. That being said, I would agree that it's really the office's responsibility.
It is.
And so I would say this, that since we've had this particular website 2018, we've never had anybody in the office that updated the directory. So it's not just Cynthia, it was never really done before either.
It's part of my learning.
Yeah, so it was, and we haven't really taken the responsibility in the past of updating it. We basically just sort of let it be. So I think it's not a bad, I mean, Catherine took it on last year, is basically what she did. And so I think I'd have to say that she might have updated it when she was the administrative assistant. But in general, we need to show Marianne and Mary how to do it.
Thank you.
How to
Yeah,
update it.
absolutely.
And I just started that process of working with them just this past week. I talked to Mary about posting a document, and one of the other things is I want to tell them how to send an email. Interestingly enough, as I'm doing this with Mary, John says he's in his office, and he says, when I come in to talk to him, he says, I want to learn how to do those things too. I said, that's great. So I showed John how to post a document. I have to admit that to me, it's a very easy and straightforward process. But when I go to explain it to somebody else and the number of things they wrote down, it's not an easy process.
Well, let's train them up. Let's train them up.
There's a lot of steps to it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to take a little time for them to get used to that. But I think it will be a good exercise. Go ahead, Lynn.
I have two comments. One
Okay.
about the last thing you said, train other people to post documents. That we have had a great deal of evidence that often leads to unforeseen consequences, let us say. So it may be a better system if it's easy and second nature for you, Chris, for people to write those posts and send them on to you to be posted. In other words, to write the content, give you
most of the documents that they would post would be minutes and agendas that are generated here in the office.
Okay.
So there wouldn't be a lot of documents that we've had the issues with.
And there would be no question about where to post it. That's the problem we've run into.
After the training.
I think it is it shouldn't be a problem if you're doing, if you have minutes and you have January, February, March, it shouldn't be an issue. Um, I would say that there will be some glitches probably, and some things may end up in the wrong places. But that's part of the learning process.
Okay.
Eventually people will get better at it.
But you can follow up then on
Yeah.
when something was posted, you'll know.
Right. And I think I need to, both Mary and John wrote down these notes, and Mary Ann's not here today, so I haven't had a chance to talk to her about it. But I do think that it's probably good for me to write down those notes as well, so that I could hand them out to somebody.
Right.
Besides, maybe somebody else that may eventually take my job. That'd be fun. So, yeah, go ahead.
I have a second comment about
Sure.
the earlier Andrews and the whole subject of updating the directory. I think that the IT committee should be out of this to the greatest extent possible. I mean, it's a time issue.
I agree.
And the other thing is that I seem to recall, Chris, when you sent out the so-called the office list,
Right.
that there were errors in that in relatively minor ways. But for example, deceased people were not removed. Okay, so I recognized several cases of that, where the unit continued to be owned by the surviving spouse, but they're the wrong names. That the people who should be doing this are the cluster advisor people who, have a limited amount of contacts to make. They know most of the people, and it's, their inquiry would be welcome to go door to door to those directory entries that we were missing or had questions about, and fill in the information. But the second part of that might be to send out an email regularly. I don't know what that means. Saying, please go to the directory. Here's what to do, and make sure your information is correct. There are two people I can think of in my cluster that I have wanted to email or call, and the information's not up to date in the directory.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mentioned it to them. And, one, for example, is the former president of the association, who you would think would want to have.
Yeah, I just
And-
had a new member of the board who I suggested to her that her phone number should be in the directory. Because what we do is when you're a board member, we put a link to your directory page on the board member list. And when I went and took a look at hers, her phone number wasn't there. So I suggested to her that she put it in. She emailed me later and she said, I'm not sure how I've tried it and it isn't working. So she did get it. She did do it. So where I get an email when somebody's profile is updated. And so she did put her phone number in there. But you're absolutely right, Lynn. There's certainly, it would be, I think that's a great idea to send out an email and say, take a look at it. And then here's how you go to your profile and then update your profile. And that is 2 steps, but those 2 steps would allow people to take a look at what's in there now, whether the emails are correct, whether the phone numbers are correct. And some people might have an alternate address in there that's not correct. And they might have stuff being sent to that all. Now, that being said, if they update the directory, that doesn't mean it gets updated in the office. And so there does need to be, in my mind, more coordination between the office list and the directory. And that really is, the burden of that is really on the office people to do. But I think at this point in time, if we could update the directory through the IT committee, we would have a cleaner directory for the time being, and then we could hope that that would be updated by the office in the future. And one of the things that I think has been sporadically done, I'm not sure it's been done on any regular basis, and that is a new owner should be put in the directory. And the old owner that sold that place should be taken out of the directory.
Mm.
And I don't believe that's good. I'm pretty sure there might be some new people put in, but the old people usually aren't being taken out. And it's a pretty simple process. You know, if somebody's selling to somebody else, and the person selling should no longer be in the directory. So I think we need to certainly train the office staff in how to do that. Because I'm sure these two new people don't know how to do that yet. Jane, go ahead.
Circling back to the actual residence list that you sent out, it was in numerical order by unit number.
Yes.
Not ABC. So
Right.
maybe it's better to divide it up by cluster or village.
Actually, you're absolutely right. I started working on Pinehurst.
Yes.
And I think I got through the first cluster, maybe part of the second cluster. And I made notes of who shouldn't be in and who didn't. I didn't actually take anybody out. I just sort of made notes of what we should be doing, but I didn't take any action yet. But I agree. We should do it by village. And that way it's going to match that list better. And I'll get a new list.
And I agree that, you know, maybe it's not our responsibility in the future, but I think it's our responsibility to clean it up to the point where Mary and Marianne, when they've had a little learning time and aren't learning absolutely everything, to, you know, either at closing change the information or shoot the information to you or somebody else on the IT committee for that to be updated.
Yeah, I normally, the one thing that has happened in fairly regularly is that a new owner will ask to have a website account.
Yeah.
They'll log in and they will be basically an application will be sent to me to approve this new owner. And I don't know if they're a new owner. It doesn't tell me that when they are applying. And so I ask the office. I shoot an email to the office, so-and-so, this unit, this person, are they a new owner? And if so, you know, we'll approve them. And so then the office gets back to me on that. And sometimes if they haven't closed, we won't approve them yet. We will wait till the closing, and that's been the normal procedure before we would approve their account. And then the other thing that happens is I have to really check when somebody asks for a new account. They may already be in the system, and they're simply, you know, like they might have an account for a husband and wife, and they want to make an account for one of the others singly, because they have two email addresses. And when we send out email blasts, they both want to get the email. So there's good reasons for people to have more than one account at one address. And so you're going to see that when we start looking at these things. You're going to see perhaps, and sometimes they won't have the same name. You know, for various reasons. So we do have to be aware that there may be multiple people at an address, and we have to sometimes we don't know for sure if one of them is sold or one of them is a relative that's also on the deed. So some of that we're going to have to just, put a question mark next to and see if we can get it resolved then.
Like,
But I think it's an exercise we should do.
I don't understand why there isn't a process at closing and a checklist of things that need to be done the minute a property closes, and one of them should be to update the residence directory.
It's a matter of I think I was asking for that to happen. I really do.
Yeah, you just stated a front office procedure. So
Yeah, no, I think that's, the website has never been a top priority.
Well,
And we need to make it a top priority.
if you've got a list of things to do at closing, notifying the bank or whoever gets the money and all this sort of thing, I mean, there must be some sort of a list somewhere of what you're supposed to do.
There
And
is.
Number 5 on it should be update
Yes.
the residence list.
Yeah, no, I think we can make that happen.
We've always done it this way.
Well,
That's our motto.
I
Ready.
will admit that they have improved their checklist to some extent, just not as much as we'd like.
That is making the assumption that they have a checklist.
No, I'm
Bingo.
pretty sure that. Okay,
Now, have we
I
left?
will send out, if you don't mind, I will send out a new list of their spreadsheet, their Excel spreadsheet, and then I will ask each person to take a village. And so it'll be easy to give Roger Pinehurst and
Andrew Lakeside.
yeah. And so
If nobody's got Woodlawn, I'll do that too.
yeah, we'll break that up.
Now, there's
And Dan, if
500
you want to help us, I can help. Great, I'd appreciate that.
Now, there's 550 something units. That's a lot of work for 5 people.
Well, yeah, it's going to take us some time, but I don't think it's it. I know I did the Pinehurst cluster. It probably only took me an hour or so. So I mean, as you go through the list, you're just going to see, oh, this person's on this list and this person's in the directory. So there's nothing else to do there, and just keep going down.
Hey, Lynn, I don't disagree with you. This is a bit of a heavy lift for us. But then I look around at our different resources and what's available on the playing field, so to speak, and we are what we are. It is what it is. We have 2 new people at the front desk who are still drinking out of a fire hydrant for their own onboarding. And an up-to-date resident directory, in my mind, for any association is a pretty important document. So even though I'm absolutely, it's a front office responsibility. I said before, if we got to do what we got to do, then yes, let's do the heavy lift and get it back to where it needs to be. And the follow-up to that is Chris's training that he's already undertaken with John's knowledge and approval, so that we can indeed execute the transferring of the responsibility and the re-engagement of this responsibility back to the front office where it should be, and where it will not be a huge deal to maintain a list after it's been brought back from being fallow for so long.
Go ahead, Jane.
I love doing stuff like this. So you can
Meet the people.
on me if you'd like, because I really do like doing stuff like this.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, it really it's interesting to me to see who some of these people are. I mean, there's names there that are familiar, and there's names that aren't. So I think it won't be as difficult an exercise as we might think.
Okay. Chris, would you review what it is you want to happen?
You're going to see a list of unit owners from the. Actually, I'm pretty sure that the renters are on that because it does have units that have renters. And so the spreadsheet will have the office's latest up-to-date data. And what you want to do is go through the resident directory and see if things match. And if they don't match, make a note of it, and then keep, let me know where it doesn't match, and then we can make that, figure out whether that's somebody who no longer owns here, or if there's some kind of discrepancy in who we have listed as owners that we might have wrong on the website. So we just want to clear up those things, and so just make a note of where there's where they don't match.
Can I ask a question, Chris? Do we show the owner and the renter on the website?
I'd have to go back and look, and I don't know for sure if we do. I know in the directory we show renters, and so there may be in the directory you may see two entries where there is an owner and a renter. And I don't know whether I think this list that we have from the office is only going to show owners. And so it may be something that we may have to follow up on as to whether someone who we are listing as a renter is still a renter, or whether they were renting and now are gone. And so I'm going to have to ask the office if they should have a renter list as well.
We approved
and
the
we have to
renters,
make-
but we should have a current list.
Yes, absolutely. And we need to make sure that we have that list as well as the owner list. Go ahead, Jane.
I'm just looking at a renter that I know that happens to live next door to me on the website, and both the renter and the owner are shown
Right.
here.
That's what it should be.
Although I'm aware of a renter who lives on the other side of me and they are not shown.
Okay. I again, what happens on the resident directory in the past and up until now is that basically if they didn't ask for a website account, they aren't showing up.
Right.
And so if we have a renter that never has had wanted to be on the website, then we aren't going to see them. And so I think what we want to do is, again, check with an office list and be able to put that renter on, whether they want an account or not. We want to have them on there.
And there's probably a difference between short-term 3-month renters and long-term renters that have been there for several years.
Yeah. We don't make that distinction, but it might be something we could add to the profile, which might make sense for it to be renter long-term, renter short-term. Because I know there's a number of long-term renters.
I suspect there are short-term renters that the office doesn't even really know about.
It's possible. They're supposed to be doing a application for occupancy, and they may not have that. I'm guessing that's possible. But I do think that, I will ask them about a renter list as well as an owner list.
Chris, on that note, I could tell you, every time I see somebody different at the units that are rented in my cluster, I send an email to John immediately. I say, John, I see this car from such and such, and I see these people. Have they been approved for their 3 months?
Good for
Or are
you.
they here for 3 months?
Well, and I think,
That's just me.
well, I think Lynn suggested that a cluster advisor ought to be doing that. Is probably a good one. The only problem that I have with that is that the cluster advisor committee is dormant and they haven't met in I don't know how long. And so that whole cluster advisor group that I think should be an active part of our association isn't. And it should be. And I know that actually we have a cluster advisor in our cluster who looks after everybody. I mean, she's the kind of person that knows, what's going on and who's here and who's not here, and distributes magazines door to door and all kinds of things like that. Checks the bulletin board, but I don't think that's happening in every cluster. In fact, I'm pretty sure it isn't.
No.
Does everybody know who their cluster is?
I don't think my cluster has one right now.
We are
So
it.
it's one of those things. I could maybe pick a little bird. Steve's here. That's not quite the right metaphor, I believe. But and mention that maybe the cluster advisors ought to get together and meet every 6 months or so. I'll mention it to John too. Because I think it's an important group. So we'll send that out probably early next week. The computer class, Jane and I had 7 people. I think they were, other than one of my neighbors, Jeannie Fonseca, I believe most of them had not been to one of our other classes. And so I think it was good to have some new people. My wife was here and she gave us, I don't know if she gave us an A, probably a B plus. But I thought it went pretty well. Jane, what did you think?
I thought it was good. It's always amazing to me about people who don't know what their password is.
Yeah.
They don't even know their own password.
Right. Well,
I don't know how they got there. Anyway.
And one of the things that we had at least 1 or 2 people that were on their phone. And again, the website is usable on your phone. So it was probably good to have a couple people like that. I always like it too when one of the people in the class is helping one of the other people in the class. And that was happening with a gentleman that was a little less familiar with what was going on, and I think it was maybe a neighbor of his, and she was helping him. And I always think that students, or basically people in a class, learn better when they're helping somebody else.
I went up to those folks' home and I gave them a little private tutorial on getting on Zoom. I set up a false Zoom meeting and walked them through it again because
Thank you. That's very nice, Jane.
Seemed very shaky and were asking more questions of me at the pool and so on. So
You go,
they
Jane.
were palm tree people, right?
Love it.
Yeah. Yes,
Well, thank you, Jane.
I'm happy to do that, and hopefully they'll be a little calmer about the whole thing. If they just sit down and think and not get anxious about it, things would go a lot more smoothly for a lot of people.
It's true.
Yeah, I agree. So the class went well, and I think we will probably wait till fall to probably offer these same 2 classes again. What happened to my? My agenda disappeared. Oh, here it is. One of the things that I think you might have brought this up, Jane. Should we have a current events page? Jane, explain a little more about what you might have in mind.
Well, it wasn't me that had it in mind. Somebody brought it up to me and said, the website should have this. And I said, well, I'll take it to the committee and see what they have to say. I think it's actually probably a lot of work. That's what I think. Keeping this kind of thing up to date, because the person who brought it up to me suggested, oh, there's a food truck gathering over here that, everybody would like, and there's something going on down at the Riverwalk that, people would be interested in. But keeping that kind of thing up to date is a full-time job for somebody. And curating the list would be another issue. Even, I'm sure you can find a list if you Google Bradenton events or something, but curating the list and would be another thing. And then you would have to keep track of how much and when and what dates and all this kind of thing. But I did say I would bring it up to the committee and see what they had to say.
Comment? Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because this issue came up a little bit yesterday at the newsletter meeting, and I'm all for current events coming from the association, as long as the current events that are coming from the association have to do with the association. That is to say, we can, I think, really start to get caught up in our process if we begin to be sort of a pseudo tourist board. And I don't mean to overstate that, but you know what I'm saying about events that are happening off property that are not having to do with association. And I reminded folks that, I always come back to this. What is the reason for the association to exist? And there's only one reason. It's to preserve and protect the value of the property. And all communications should be able to be funneled down into supporting that goal. And the further away you get from that goal, the more work you produce, or, I'm not sure what type of return for the association. So anyway, I agree with Jane. It would be a lot of work, but I really encourage the dialogue because, it's interesting. We have a newsletter that comes out twice a year. And so that's not exactly what you'd call covering current events. And other associations have monthly newsletters, and other associations have a weekly manager's report. And other associations have a television channel that gets updated once a week. So there are other options for current events. I think current events around the property, as well as including social events, association-driven social events, I think is absolutely fair game. But I get concerned when we start bringing in third party on and off property events in that kind of an endeavor.
Other comment? I would agree. This kind of information is available in the local papers. And so I'm not sure we want to try to duplicate events, as Andrew said, off-site. I think it is important for us, as I sent out an email last night about Dennis Lee's next production, which is going to be in about a week. Those events are on their property. Those are important to have notify residents about. But yeah, I think we've got other outlets that can provide that information.
Yeah.
So, any other items that you would like to bring to the floor?
I have one quick one.
Sure.
I know people are smiling quick, Andrew, really. Okay, I get it. I'm trying. At yesterday's meeting, there was an appetite to secure up-to-date list for committee and up-to-date list of cluster advisors. I know that up-to-date committee listing, I did do a scan when you assigned me that portion of the website, and I know that we are not up to date with some of the committee listings. So I'm happy to take on that responsibility if you want me to, as it relates to just double checking that our committee lists are all up to date. And when I've got a confirmation of that, I would issue that up-to-date committee list to you, Chris, but also to Barbara for publishing in the next issue. And I would do the same for cluster advisors, although I don't think that I'm going to come back with a complete list of cluster advisors.
Well, there's some vacancies, I know that.
Right. So anyway, but at least I would get a snapshot of the current status of cluster advisors, and then perhaps you could continue to press that agenda with Steve.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it's probably more of a bit more of a formal process to get the cluster advisor group engaged and back up and running, meeting on a regular basis. So
Yeah. I have sent an email to committee chairman asking them for an updated committee list.
you get anything back?
I did. I got one back from the pool committee.
Great.
I got one back from the budget committee.
Great.
And the social committee.
Great.
So those three, I got back some information. I haven't gotten back from the building or the landscape people.
So it's just building, landscape, and finance that we need.
Yeah, the finance committee is sort of, it's not really a finance.
Kind of comes together at budget time.
No, it's basically the treasurer and maybe the assistant treasurer. And that's about it.
So
As far as I know, I mean, I don't know if there's anybody, I don't think there's anybody else on that.
and I pursued the building and the landscape
Oh,
folks.
absolutely. It's always helps to.
And then, of course, we have an up-to-date IT, and then you've got up-to-date pool, budget, and social.
Yeah.
So really, we're all
And
up
I
there.
posted those.
Okay. Great.
I haven't posted the budget yet, but I have posted the pool and the social.
Okay.
So, yeah, and cluster advisor, it wouldn't hurt to ask her again. I think I sent an email to her, but I have to check. I think I did. I'll make sure I did. But it wouldn't hurt to send her another one.
When you say send her,
There's a chairman.
there is.
There's a cluster advisor chairman. I can't think of her name right.
Well, I'll pursue both of those with you.
Okay.
So that we end up sending Barbara something accurate in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm just looking,
It's
Chris.
something that we try to do at the beginning of every year, and so we want to keep those up to date.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I'm just looking at the IT committee
Yes,
members. We have Joan Evans and George Fisher.
I thought I changed that. I
And
must
we
not
have,
have. I must not have saved it. I know I took them off. If I didn't hit save button, it kept them on. So I'll go in and take another look at it.
and it says as of March 2020.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know I changed it. I must not have saved it. It's one of the things that you gotta be very careful at on the website. You do something and then if you don't go down the bottom and hit save, it doesn't save it.
Okay.
I'll redo that. Any other things? Our next meeting, would be, the end of April, April 26th. And if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
thank you very much. Thank you all for being on Zoom. Thank you, Dan, for coming over and maybe helping us out a little bit.
Thank you, Chris.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
thank you. See you all next time.
Hey, I thought that was, but I wanted to make sure. Okay.